Jai Jinendra. Welcome to Adults Class 2, Practical Applications of Jainism. Let's start with the Nokar mantra. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loy Savasavanam, Eso Pachanamokaro Savapava Panasano Mangalalancha Savesim Paramam Have Mangalam. This is a painting called The Night Watch. It's pretty easy to appreciate. You know, when we look at the Night Watch, we can recognize people and faces. We can recognize hierarchy. You know, this person is more important than that person. There's a little girl right there. She's looking confused. She's in mostly white, and the image is in mostly black. And from our own attempts at art, we know that it takes a long time to produce a painting like this, and it's hard to execute. So when we look at the hay wain, we can recognize the landscape. We can recognize the serenity, the water, the trees, the rural life. It's something that we can appreciate really easily. When we look at the birth of Venus, we can recognize the beauty in the human form, the flowing hair, the flowing ocean. I don't think there's many straight lines. The only straight lines is the horizon and these trees. Otherwise, there's no straight lines in the whole thing. So we can see that it's a soft, elegant picture. When we look at liberty leading the people, we can recognize there's danger and violence and courage, and we understand that it's a dramatic scene, and there's weapons, right? And these are really easy to appreciate because they give us familiar entry points. That is, in these scenes, there are bodies, faces, and landscapes, which we're familiar with. There's clothing and clouds. There's weapons and animal and movement, right? There's drama, right? There's beauty. There's emotion. It's easy to tell that the artist is trying to convey an emotion. I don't know how to admit people in sharing mode. Let me stop. So it's easy to see that. Even if we don't know the history or the place being depicted, you might not have no idea what this is. But that doesn't mean you can't appreciate the painting. And your brain likes to do that. It likes familiar, recognizable items like the ones you see in these paintings. It likes to say, I know what this is. Because this is, after all, one of the primary purposes of your brain. Pattern recognition. The better you are at pattern recognition, the higher your chances of survival. Which is why false positives are okay with your brain, but false negatives are not okay with your brain. Your brain would rather be anxious but safe than unanxious and potentially unsafe. That's why you can live your life with anxiety. Your brain thinks there's no problem with that. It likes that. And when we put something in a box, it's easy for us to judge it. We can say, this is beautiful, or this is impressive. You know, we can look at the hay wain and say, this is peaceful, right? Or we can look at Lady Liberty and say, this is dramatic. It's good. We like to put things into boxes. We love to put people into boxes too. Even if the box is wrong for you, you can say, you know, you can look at the hay wain, right, and say, this is not for me. It's not my style. Your brain still likes that, even if the box is negative, because you can ignore it and your brain is happy. But the problem is that reaction, that judging, happens almost instantaneously. You have put this painting in a box. The moment you saw it, basically. You immediately formed a reaction to it because you could put it in a box. But now take a look at this one. This is called the black square. You might look at the painting and say, that's it? Or you might look at this Jackson Pollock painting and you might say, well, my kid could do that. This painting sold for $140 million.
Can you put this a little?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You might look at one of these paintings and say, well, the real art was convincing the correct people that this should be hung up in a museum. This isn't the art. The real art was fooling all these people. You might look at this painting by Mondrian and say, well, this looks like graph paper. Or what could be so interesting about squares that I need to pay $20 and drive to the museum to go visit it? You might look at this painting by an artist named Kandinsky and think, I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking at here. I can't tell what this is. So it's harder to relate to these paintings. And all those reactions are normal, right? There's no face. There's no story. There's no landscape or anything recognizable in these, right? There's no event. There's no like moral of the story. It's not Lady Liberty leading the people, right? There's no person to identify it. So what happens in your brain? Your brain can't really put it into a box. And if it does put it in the box, you put it into a box and you don't open that box ever again. Because your brain wants to categorize a painting like that. And it wants to understand. And I'm just talking about paintings here, but we're talking about all art. We're talking about music, books, anything art. It's just easier to show you paintings. Your brain wants to know whether something like this is a good painting or a bad painting. It wants to know whether other people also think this painting is bad and also wonder why this sold for $140 million. Right? It wants to know, oh, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe everybody else gets it and I don't get it. You want to know. And that's the important point. When you looked at this, you formed a reaction to it and you put it in a box. But when you look at this, it took you a second. You didn't immediately put it in a box because you didn't immediately see what you were looking at. It took you a second. And that's the important point, is that space between the experiencing and the putting in the box. Because once you put it in the box, you don't have to experience it ever again. You know that that thing won't hurt you. Or you know that it's good. Or you know that it's bad. You put it in the box, the lid in the box is closed, you don't have to worry about it anymore. But something like this, you can't put it in a box, now it's in your mind. Now you think about it. Your brain wants to put it in the box, you can't put it in the box. And that's the important point, that space between receiving the thought and giving attention to the thought, right? And sometimes a painting like this will reveal more about you than it will reveal about the artist. You know, sometimes a painting like the Haywain, you're like, oh, the artist likes rural scenes. Probably spent a lot of time out there. He spent a lot of time learning how to paint trees. So you can learn a lot from that artist. You might not know anything about this person, and this painting won't tell you anything about this person. But it will tell you about yourself, right? It will tell you if you're an impatient person. It will tell you if you want to count how many squares are in this picture. Some people like to do that. It will tell you, why did the artist use these colors? It will reveal your desire to understand. It will reveal more about you than the artist. And maybe it reveals some of your insecurity, that you feel like everybody else understands this painting and you don't. Right? And maybe it reveals more about you. Maybe it reveals, like, if your first thought was it's crazy that somebody paid $140 million for this painting, what does that say about me? Does that say that I think all paintings should have a monetary value? Does that mean that I think some people are crazy? Does that mean that I think I'm the missionary telling everybody the emperor has no clothes? I'm telling everybody my kid can do this, and this doesn't deserve to be in a museum? Questions or comments about that? Nobody has any questions about that?
The link to Jainism is forthcoming.
That is coming. Yeah, we usually get into about 30 minutes in, 40 minutes in, but yeah, we're getting there. Sure. Thanks for being patient. Very quiet today after a month off. So when we go to a museum, we kind of feel overwhelmed, right? It's like pretty crowded. We drove a long way to get there. There's so many rooms. There's infinite amount of rooms in a museum. There's so many paintings, right? And when you stand in a room in front of a painting, you might not know what to do. What are you supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to know about this artist? Am I supposed to know about the event that's being depicted in the painting? Am I supposed to read the little plaque next to it? Am I supposed to read that first and then look at the painting? Am I supposed to look at the painting first and then read the little plaque? How long do I have to stand here and pretend to understand this painting before I can move on to another painting, right? And let's say you do get the painting, right? Well, you get the painting, and then what do you do about it? Okay, I understand this painting. Does that mean it's time to move to the next painting, right? So if you're like that, don't worry. Everybody's like that. And it's okay to be like that. But you don't need, and you can, either way is okay. You can read the little thing beforehand, or you can say, no, I don't want to, because that adds a layer of meaning. If you know the title is Lady Liberty Leading Death, then this is like a personification of an idea. She's not on the battlefield, but these other people are on the battlefield, and they're following her, You may not want that, right? You may want to experience it by yourself, because are you supposed to experience a painting with the title? I don't know. People have a different idea. That's why some artists don't title their painting, because they don't want to distract you from what the experience is supposed to be. So, when you go to a museum, you can have fun, right? You can think that it's strange. You can think that it's crazy. You can think that it's beautiful. You can think that it sucks. You're allowed to think that. And you should think those things. You shouldn't think that you are crazy for not liking something that everybody likes, and you shouldn't think that you're above everybody else when you like something that most other people don't like. When you look at a painting, it can be confusing, or it can remind you of something in your life, or it can make you feel something you didn't think that you would feel. And so it's not about, when you go to a museum, it's not about your expertise in art, or about whether you know how to paint and you know how difficult this was to paint, or whether you know the history behind this artist, or even the name of this artist, right? It's about your attention, and it's about your relationship to the experience. So when you stand in front of a picture, you don't have to rush to decide whether you like it or not. First, you just stand and look at the picture. And you want to see where your eyes go first. Like, maybe your eyes were drawn to the little girl because she's the only one in white, and everybody else is in dark clothes, right? You want to see whether some colors stand out, or whether you feel calm or tense when looking at the painting, when you experience it, or whether you identify with people. You might identify with this person, and another people would identify with that person in the painting. And then you begin to notice how it makes you feel. What are you feeling right now? Am I interested in this? Do I like to spend time in front of this painting? Am I confused by this? Am I bored by this? You notice what you're feeling. And does this remind me of something in my own life? And then maybe after that you can look at the title and the artist. And then go back and look at the painting and say, oh, does that add a layer of meaning that I didn't get before? And if so, why didn't I get it before? And is it the artist's fault that I didn't get it before, or is it my fault? It's like, oh, I'm dumb. Of course this lady is not on the battlefield. Yeah, I don't know why I thought this lady was on the battlefield. Of course she's an idea, right? Oh, that's my fault. That's not the artist's fault. She's in like bright colors and everything else is drab and gray. The artist was telling me this is not real and this lady is not here. So that's totally on me. But sometimes it might be the artist's fault, right? It might be like, you might see the picture and it says like, squares are beautiful. And you're like, that's the artist's part. These squares are not beautiful, So you decide that. And so the goal is not to force you to appreciate all the paintings in the museum. The goal is for you to reflect on who you are and see your reaction and notice how your mind works. And if there is a conversation between you and the artist, and if there is, what does that conversation consist of? I might feel that the conversation consists of the artist laughing at me because I am looking at his painting, and it doesn't matter whether it's upside down or right side up or inside out. And all that matters is that he convinced someone to pay him money to put this in a museum. That might be the conversation that I'm having with the artist. What does all that sound like? Monitoring your feelings, and thinking about your thoughts, and having imaginary conversations with people. Sounds to me like mindfulness. Haven't I been talking your head off about that before?
Yes.
So art appreciation is the practice of mindfulness. If you don't like what I said before, all those exercises I made you do about let's look at our snapping fingers or let's eat an apple and consult our emotions about how we're eating an apple. If you're not there yet, one way you can get there is to go to a museum. And that will help you practice. And you might not get what I'm saying when I'm like, oh, you have to think that you're over here and you're looking at yourself and you're looking at your life as you go through your life with the camera behind your head. You might not know what that means. So one stepping stone to get there is to go to a museum and try to understand how these paintings make you feel or supposed to make you feel, and this dialogue, right? Why does red make me tense, or why does blue in the birth of Venus make me calm? I don't know. Is that something inherent in me, in all people? Or is that something that artists understand? Why do I feel uncomfortable looking at this violence? Or why do I empathize with the little girl in this painting that's surrounded by adults? So if you don't know, if you look at the book, there's these books, right? 10 easy mindfulness exercises for you to do. And you may be on number 1 and you're like, I can't do this. So then go to a museum and then you'll have a good time talking to yourself. Questions or comments about that? So what does mindfulness have to do with Jainism? We're 22 minutes into this class and we haven't talked about Jainism once. Well, where does the word Jain come from? The word Jain comes from the word Jina, which means conqueror. And who are we conquering? Our enemies, right? And who our enemies are? Anger, ego, deceit, and greed. And where are our enemies located? In our brain, right? So if you don't know you're being greedy, then you'll always lose the battle with greed. If you can't even recognize when you're being greedy. Most of us can recognize when we're being angry. We're not that caught up in it, okay? Children, of course, can't. But that's where it stops. Like, that's the easiest one. A lot of us don't know when we're being too prideful or ego. Lying, some people lie like they don't even, like it's like, drinking water. They just constantly lie. They don't even know they're lying. They don't even know they're being greedy. In fact, it's possible to be enslaved without your knowledge. Okay? I'd say around the world, more people are enslaved without knowing that than are explicitly enslaved. Just look at your phone, which is trying to enslave you. Do you think people know they're being enslaved by their phone? No, they do not know they're being enslaved by their phone. They carry it around with them all day. They're willing participants in their own enslavement. Your brain is something you carry around with you all day, and it is the source of anger, ego, deceit, and greed. It is the location of the battlefield. So just because you carry it around with you all day, don't mean your enemies can't reside there. In fact, your enemies are more likely to reside there. And mindfulness helps you know where your enemies are and what vectors they use to attack you and how they enslave you. Because spiritual progress depends on us becoming aware of what is happening inside of us, especially before we act on it. So when you put things in little boxes without thinking about it, because you recognize them, you are not being mindful. But when you resist that, you don't put an experience into a box and you examine it and you take that moment and you make it last longer, you are being mindful. And that will help you along the spiritual path. Questions or comments on that?
It's a very different take, like connecting with the mind. It's a lot to take in, I feel like, and just connecting the dots between how the whole museum concept works with the mindfulness. It's not like easy to come at.
Sure. I can try to explain it again. So, when you look at a conventional painting, you put it in a box, and that means you can judge it. And that happens instantaneously.
But we keep judging every single moment, right? Like everything we see, we kind of have a perception about it without even knowing about it. Like you see a person, you just by looking at them, you make like a framework in your mind, right?
Absolutely.
But your experience can be completely different after you talk to that person, or
Sure.
right?
If you're good at it, if you're a good person, then you will revise your opinion of other people when they show you differently, yeah. But yeah, you're right. It happens all the time. It happens automatically. And it's certainly very hard. I mean, I never promised this was going to be easy. I'm sorry.
So when you say being mindful, in this example,
Yeah.
looking at a picture of
Yeah.
any art, right?
Right.
So go without any judgment, without any expectation, give a fresh look, and then based on your experience, you put it in a bucket or box?
No. You resist putting it in a box as long as possible. As long as possible.
But you have to come to some kind of conclusion, right?
You do
Like,
not. You do
That's
not.
what he said.
You look at the black square and not come to any conclusion about it. It's hard. It is very hard not to come to a conclusion about it because your brain wants to.
So what you are saying that don't make an opinion about something, like just
Absolutely.
admire what it is.
What else is rag and dwesh than making an opinion on something? Whether putting it in a box. I like that one. I don't like that one.
Basically, you're just supposed to have knowledge of this is what it, like, I see that this is, but I'm not supposed to have a like or dislike about it.
Of course. Because that like or dislike will bind karma to your soul. And so the longer you can resist, the better you are at not putting things into boxes. Well, guess what we call that? We call that samvar. Samvar is the blocking of karma from binding to your soul. Remember, if we remember the example of the person in the boat, samvar is stop plugging that hole. We're not letting karma bind to our soul. So you sounded incredulous about it, right? Like, well, it's a foregone conclusion that I put things into boxes. It's not. I'm telling you it's not. And I'm telling you it's very hard. But once you practice not doing that, your life will become better.
It's so hard to do.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
It's not like,
It's unbelievably hard.
Exactly.
It's the hardest
I don't
thing
think
you'll
you
ever
do
do.
but when you think of like babies and kids, like younger kids, they don't have that. It's a habit that you kind of
Form.
gain.
along,
Yeah,
yes.
you form as you get older, right? Because
Yeah.
the younger, like babies or kids, they don't have any kind of opinion, I'm guessing.
Sure. I agree.
But they do, I think. If they're eating food, they'll say what they like and don't like.
Yeah, but
So there is opinion.
I think that is formed because of us, right?
No, like just regular baby food. They don't.
Sure. Yeah, I think, Arya at 4 months, didn't like some baby food and did like
And
other
you're not
baby food.
supposed to not like something or like something.
Yeah, it's the brain, right? And is your brain a part of you? Is your brain, part of your soul?
So is every time you see something as a fresh start?
Absolutely.
So if I'm on a stove, one time I touched it, experience teaches you is what you guys are saying.
Right.
So I come to the stove, you're telling me I can go touch it to see if it's different?
If you are at that level, you will have achieved Gebelnyan by then. If you are at the level where you're like, I am experiencing a stove for the very first time in my 45 years of life, and I don't know what it will do to me, then you are at a completely different plane of awareness.
If you had the cable man, would
And
you
I
know
would-
about the stove? Because you have the complete knowledge.
And I would say, congratulations.
You're not going to go.
And I would say congratulations. I try to meet people whenever I haven't met somebody in a while. I try to revise my opinion of them because they've grown and I've grown, and maybe I should treat them differently.
Things change.
Things change.
Wait, does it happen in your partner too then?
Absolutely. I am not the same person she married.
Right.
I am a completely
Right,
different
I mean, we've
person.
been married 20 years now.
I know.
And so, I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like we've grown.
Yeah. The hard part is to grow together rather than grow apart. When you change, you grow together. That's the hard
So,
part.
how do you look at that aspect? Because you spend more time. How do we, like, in that fresh start, how do you do that?
You go to the museum.
Together.
You practice.
Together.
Yeah,
Look at
so
the same painting and
that's-
have a different
no.
opinion.
I mean, okay.
Not have any opinion. That's
Not
what he
have-
said.
that's
Not
not
have any
have
opinion.
any
Just
opinion.
stare at
Right.
it.
I mean, yeah, you guys laugh, but that's what we've been talking about, is how to do it, is how not to put them in a box, how to not judge them, but experience a person or a painting or a song or food, which is art, or your life, which is art, how to keep experiencing that without judging it. What do you think the whole point of Mahavir eating whatever was put in front of him was for? What do you think the point of that story was for?
But if you are looking at something, you talking about it, that means you are already judging about it. Like you're forming an opinion about it that you are talking about it, right?
I am telling you there is a space there. I know it's hard to believe. You've told me that it's inevitable that you judge something, that you're constantly judging things. And I say, when you're at one phase, it seems like it's inevitable. But I'm telling you, you can work on experiencing without judging and experiencing without forming an opinion. And that is what this exercise is trying to teach you, is trying to take a black square and not judge it, not judge the artist, not judge how much skill it took to recreate, not think about how many people they fooled to convince them to put it in a museum. Not to do that. And it's hard. It's not easy. And I see that you're skeptical, which is fine. But
I feel like it is harder with the kids and the partner. I mean, that's, outside you can okay, fine. For a minute you can do that. But for your kids, especially teenager, and constantly telling them, I think it's hard. How do you teach them this?
I'll tell you something that I told you that I'm not the same person that she married 17 years ago. Your kid, if your kid's 15, he's been about 5 to 6 different people. I'm just one different person away from the person that she married. Your kid is like 6 different people away from the kid that you knew. Because parenting is all about reevaluating the relationship and what the child is capable of. And because one day, your child is you're not going to take on the parenting role as much. You're going to take on more of an advisor role. And then you're going to take on more of a friendship role, right?
Okay.
And that parenting is a constant process of letting go of those responsibilities, right? And so the best way to teach your kids on how people change and your relationship with things should change is by treating them differently, because they are a different person. They're actually 6 people removed from the people that they were born.
So, just breaking it down a little bit, why I don't want to judge this is because probably the subsequent action will be going towards against one of the skashaya, probably? Is that what we are saying?
Absolutely, because that's where the rag and dvesh come in. When you judge things and you get in the habit of that, you're getting in the habit of binding karma to your soul.
So when we look other side and say exercise is good for you, Jainism practicing is good for you, and you admire that, you're putting that also in a box and working towards that. How does that work then?
Sure. So it reminds me of when kids say, well, they talk to their Patsala teacher and they say, okay, I understand all karma is bad, but then you just told me there are good karma and bad karma. So now I don't understand. Is the good karma bad? Yes. The good karma is also bad for you. But when you're at step 1 on the spiritual path, we tell you just do the good karma. And then when you're on step 500 of the spiritual path, we'll say stop doing good deeds. Okay? We will say stop doing good deeds. So yes, I'm telling you, it's bad to have an opinion on things, it's bad to judge things. But right now, think that Jainism is good. Think that dieting is good. Think that exercising is good. When you're at step 1023 on your spiritual path, I will say, yes, Jainism is not the end-all be-all. And I will say, yes, your diet and your exercise are not the end-all be-all. You should rather spend your time in meditation doing nirjara. But we're not there yet.
So today's discussion is definitely like 10,001 steps.
No, it's supposed to be a stepping stone to get you there.
You're not even there yet.
It's
Not
step,
better like a baby step.
it's step 1/2. It's the
Yes.
stepping stone to get you to step 1. And that's how hard this is, unfortunately. I cannot be there in your life. I would love to be there in your life to tell you the right things to do. And it's easy for me to say that here. And I know that it's easy for me to say that here. It's very hard to do in real life. I only get you here. I don't get you in real life. So so one of the things we can do to get it into our real life is to go to a museum. So when you go to a museum, the first thing is don't try to see everything. There are like 200,000 pieces in the museum at DC, right? You don't go try to see everything. You go see particular things. A particular section that you're interested in, or a particular section that will challenge you, or a particular section that you like. You pick a theme. And then when you pick a theme, then you say, today I'm just going to look at faces, or today I'm just going to look at colors, or today I'm just going to look at Italian Renaissance painters from 1500 to 1502. Or something like that, right? The second thing is then, before you read the plaque, first you look at the painting. And you do everything we talked about. And then you read the plaque. And then you come back and you look at the painting. And then you see, well, has my thoughts changed? And whose fault is that? Is that my fault or is that the artist's fault? Right? And then, if it really strikes you, then you go home and look up the artist and the history of the painting and the time it was painted and all that stuff. All that good stuff. If it really, spoke to you, or you understood it, or you were really confused about it, or you wondered why this painting isn't even in the museum, you go look and see the history about it. And then when you're in front of the painting, you say, oh, where do my eyes go? Or what do I see first? And why did I do that, right? Or why does it make me feel this way? Is it the colors? Is it the painting? Is it this person's face that reminds me of this other person that I hate? Or what makes it beautiful? Or why do other people like this painting? And then so you're constantly monitoring your thoughts, especially if emotion comes up. Now, there's no better compliment that an artist can receive than you emotionally reacted to the painting, positively or negatively. The more extreme the reaction, the more compliment you're giving the artist. Because it's just BS there up on the wall, okay? If it really affected you, the artist is going to be amazed, even negatively. This is just something that he worked on that is up on the wall. And now 1 million people are coming to look at it, and they all hate it. Oh, artists would love that. Because to elicit an emotional reaction, that kind of extreme emotional reaction, means they're doing something right, even if the reaction is negative. Because you would normally be indifferent. Yeah, there's something on the wall. I don't really care. I don't really care if somebody spent 10 hours to make it. I don't really care. That's the ultimate, insult you can give to an artist, is not caring. Questions or comments on that?
That correlates to Einstein's famous quote. There was a book published which said 100 authors or 100 people who can prove Einstein wrong, and the reaction that Einstein gave was, why 100? Even one can be sufficient if I'm wrong.
Right. Yeah, why does it take 100 people? Right. Yeah. If 100 people are thinking about me, that means I did pretty good in my life, right? Yeah. So the museum can be a place, just like we practice mindfulness at the museum, and I told you how to do that. It can be a place to practice other things. How about anikantvad, right? How about we try to understand where this artist is coming from, even though you hate this painting, right? Or how about we practice, as we mentioned, monitoring our kashayas. How about we practice learning about rag and dvesh in the museum, right? How about we practice learning about jnana and darshan, that is knowledge and perception. How about we practice learning about what we perceive and how what we know changes what we perceive, and how those are intermixed, right? So not only can we practice mindfulness in the museum, we can practice our Jain concepts in the museum. We can practice our Lesha in the museum. Who remembers what Lesha is? Lesha is your mindset, and it is associated with the color. And the color of your mindset refers to how well or how poorly you react to different things. And that's what we've been talking about. We've been talking about reacting to different things. If you go in and you react to everything really positively or really negatively at the museum, your Lesha might be in a certain state. If you go in and you're indifferent and you are noticing things and you don't let it affect you emotionally, your Lesha might be in a different state.
Sometimes when you go to a museum, right? For example, you go to see Mona Lisa. You are going there with the pre-notion in your mind, based on what people said, or you should like it because everyone else likes it. Otherwise, you are doing something wrong, right?
Sure,
And then when you go there, even though you might think, oh, it's just a painting, but you try hard to understand it.
Right.
I'm just giving an example, right? So you have that pre-notion in your mind, and then you are judging it or analyzing it based off of that.
Yeah.
So how that works with the whole concept?
Most people, when they go, they're surprised at how small it is.
Yeah.
It's the most famous painting in the world. It's like this big.
Yeah.
And you can't see it because there's like 1 million people in front of you.
They won't let you go close either. You have to have certain distance.
And that is a microcosm of what goes on in your life.
So then first thing you feel is disappointed, right?
Absolutely.
Rather
And
than,
you walk so much.
Yeah.
Just to get this.
Flew all the way over
no
there.
one talks about that,
That's
does it? Like no one would talk about
But
that.
then you're judging them. He said don't judge.
No, but when I looked at it, it didn't even smile at me.
That's your fault.
That's because you were looking at the mouth.
Oh.
If you look at the eyes, then
Yeah.
it'll smile at you.
Oh,
See,
wow.
you're looking at the wrong thing.
Wow.
So, if you want to talk about the Mona Lisa, the reason it's the most famous painting in the world is because the artist Da Vinci knew something about light and color that nobody else knew. And he knew that your experience in the peripheral differs from your experience when you focus on an object. And so, not only did he know that, but he demonstrated that he knew that in the most effective way possible, which was in a human face. So when you look at the Mona Lisa's eyes, it looks like she's smiling at you. But then you look at her mouth to verify that she's smiling at you, and she's actually not smiling at you. And so he understood that the perception is different from the reality. And what is real? The what you perceive, or, well, what you perceive are two different things. And so what is going on is your perception, your expectations. See, now Da Vinci did a double whammy. Because not only did he did that, but he's messing with you, somebody who he doesn't know, 1,000 years or 500 years in the future. And he's saying, I know you're going to come a long way to see this thing. And I know you're going to have expectations about it. And I know you're going to think it's big. And it's really small. And I know it's going to disappoint you. And I know you're going to yell about it in Houston, Texas. And I love it. I love that I could get this emotional reaction from you. Because that means I'm doing my job as an artist. And you're not doing your job in monitoring your emotions, monitoring your expectations, taking care of your soul. He is literally enslaving your soul, and he loves it.
No.
And that's what it can teach us about life, right? You're right. It has to do with your expectations. It has to do with the outsized influence it has on the world. It has to do what other people think about it. It has to do that it's hanging in the wall in the most famous museum in the world. It has to do with they won't even let you look at it, but for 10 minutes with a group of 100 other people. It has to do with all of that. And it has to do with your life and your soul. And that's what it has to do with you. Thanks for your time this week. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
This was a very deep
Yeah,
last
it's a very
30
weird
seconds.
comment.
Basically, you got to be the most boring person around. No judgment, no opinion. Even though with the experience what you have, you just have to be very neutral.
Well, tell me why you're so negative about being boring. Do you care
No,
with a lot of
no,
other
I'm
people
saying
with
that's
you?
what we are
You have to
talking
be the most boring person
Absolutely,
in the
I have no
world.
problem with it. But that's what it means. It looks like.
Sure. I mean, that is why when you achieve a certain level of spiritual awareness, when you're a certain step along the spiritual path, you will find no reason not to go be a hermit and live in a cave and do nirjara for the rest of the little time that you have available to you. You don't have that much time. If you knew how precious each moment was, then you would spend most of your time. You'd leave your wallet here, your phone here, your keys here, you'd walk out that door and you'd keep walking.
So it's just like being oblivious to everything. Like basically what Mahavir did when he kept walking, even though his clothes were falling off, he didn't care. Just lose everything and then just keep going.
I agree with you, except oblivious is not the right word. Oblivious is not the right word. Oblivious means you're ignorant of the ramifications of your actions. I agree with you if you use a different word. Let's think of a different word. Not you're oblivious to everything else. It's not that you don't care about everything else. It's that you realize that it doesn't matter.
Nothing matters.
What does the contents of my wallet matter? What does the contents of this computer matter? It's not oblivious to realize that it doesn't matter. What's a good word?
Indifferent.
No, it's not indifferent. You care because you know it doesn't matter. It's kind of like means. What's a word that means like you see the truth and for what it is? What? You're enlightened. How about that?
No.
That's a great word. Yeah, it's not that you're oblivious. It's that you're enlightened. Yeah.
So when kids are like enlightened or oblivious, when they are young, we make them realize, no, you need to care about this thing. So we are the one teaching them that way.
Yeah.
And now we are telling we shouldn't be doing that. Like
We
it's
didn't
so
know that.
contradictory.
So-
No, we didn't know better
No,
then.
what?
Yeah,
No,
we
now
didn't
we
know.
know
I
better.
think he's right. We didn't
We
know
didn't know
better.
that better. Now we do.
Now
know
we
better.
do.
Yeah,
What are we
that's-
doing different?
So what happens is you spend about 3 years trying to teach your kids to talk. And then you spend the rest of your life trying to teach your kids to be quiet. Okay? It's the same thing. All right? That is, it's different to be quiet when you know how to speak than it is to be quiet when you don't know how to speak. So it's different for you to be enlightened or quote unquote not care when you know why you're doing it than when you don't know why you're doing it. There is a difference there.
Definitely 10,001 steps. Not a baby step.
Thank you so much for your time this week. I'm glad we have such good attendance. I know we've had a month off. I was worried that we wouldn't have anybody back. So thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more class, right?
You are a magnet.
We have how many more classes?
One more, right?
I don't know. We'll have to look at the calendar.
Kids have exam next week.
Yeah, they have
Oh,
an
yeah?
Hindi exam is next week.
Oh, okay.
Hey, but I don't.
There's two more. It's May 3rd and May 10th. And
Okay.
the graduation is the 16th.
Oh, it's 16.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's two more.
Okay.
She's gonna match me.
Alright,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Ah, sugar to meet you.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, thank you.
I'm trying. I'm in touch.
Yeah, I know.
I'm in touch.